Turn up the volume here. There we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Ferguson, a product manager with Vetaquinol USA. With me I have our very own Dr. Brian McLaughlin, our veterinarian on staff. And today we're talking all about pet stress, not vet stress, although no. I'm sure if you're a vet out there, you experience that sometimes. So this will be one of our first in a series of what we're dubbing Vet Talks, where we'll have Brian on to talk about a particular subject matter related to pets. So today we're talking all about pet stress, situations that cause your pet stress, and what you can do about it. So without further ado, I'll let Dr. McLaughlin give you a quick update on himself.
Yep. Hello everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We are here to talk about pet stress. Just a little bit about me. I practiced for about 10 years in small animal practice, been with Vetaquinol for about 5 years. And so bringing 15 years of experience to this session today. And at home, I live with my wife and two young children. And we have a 5-year-old golden retriever, prototypical, I guess, for a veterinarian to have a golden retriever, but very good dog. And then we have a step dog named Baxter, who is a cross of a cattle dog, and I don't know what he's crossed with, but he's a herding type dog for sure. And then we have 3 fish that my kids named. Won't bring up their names today, but maybe later on we can do that. So we'll go ahead and get started. I think you're going to be throwing in some questions here, but we've already have some questions coming through, so we'll go ahead and get started.
So the first question is, and this is pretty timely considering we're in June heading into the July 4th holiday, and I don't know about you guys out there, but in Texas where we're at, it seems like the fireworks season lasts all month long. Mm-hmm. And I have 2 dogs myself, and so one of my dogs is totally fine, not affected at all by the noise. The other dog gets pretty scared when she hears the pops go off. So the question is, my dog hates fireworks. What can I do? What can I do to help them with fireworks?
Okay. First, I wanted to, before we get to that, sorry, Emily, that anything we talk about today, it's not meant to treat or cure your pet, so please consult your veterinarian. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. So if there's any problems, this is informational, but please consult your veterinarian. To get back to the question about fireworks, it's really important to stay calm during that situation. They can kind of sense that uneasiness if you are stress during that time, so they can kind of play off of that. Yep, we're good. All right, good. Sorry, we're a little technical.
Checking the volume
on it. So stay calm for sure. The most important thing that I think for firework sensitivities or noise sensitivities is just have a safe place for the pet to go to. So you may already have that. Maybe it's a crate. Maybe it is a bed that they can go lay in. It's basically that safe haven for them, so they can feel comfortable during that time. We want to make it as positive as possible during that time, so we want to give them treats, give them a toy to play with, something that they see as positive, and what we call as positive reinforcement to get them to go to that safe place. And that safe place should be somewhere that's quiet, more the center of the house, maybe a bathroom. Sometimes they like crates as well. So certainly rewarding them to go to those to that safe place is important for those pets. So we want to close all the blinds, close the windows to kind of minimize the noise with fireworks, and really just try to avoid it as much as possible. If you know it's happening, we want to try to avoid it as much as possible. That means we don't take our pets out when there's fireworks if they do have some fireworks sensitivity. So certainly to avoid it at all costs. Sometimes it gets a little bit more severe, and some of those things may not work as well as we'd want them to. So we could use some medications, whether it be a drug or a natural medication. Certainly those are out there to help them feel calm and cope with the situation.
So we got a question on the Facebook live about thunderstorms, which I know some of the tips that you gave there will probably apply to thunderstorms also. But I think maybe the biggest difference with thunderstorms, especially here in Texas, is the unpredictability. So can you maybe expand on what you talked about with fireworks and address the sort of unpredictable aspect and what you can do to help a pet that's scared of thunderstorms?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and it's fairly difficult to really know. Sometimes the meteorologists don't know when the storms are coming anyway, so it's really tough to determine when those storms are coming. But we need to do as good of a job as possible. So I think a lot of the things that will cross over from fireworks to thunderstorms, and the fact that you want a safe place for them to go. If you are at home and you can get them to go to that safe place, sometimes you can train them well enough that they will go to that safe place. If you know a thunderstorm season is coming along, a lot of the medications, we want to start them early. Specifically Zilkene, you can start well ahead of time or do it through a whole thunderstorm season, and it would be good to do that and not try to time the thunderstorm. As far as thunderstorms and getting them used to those noises, noises in general are a difficult thing with dogs and cats, and we really need to get them accustomed to those at an early age. There's really an impressionable time before 3 months to really expose them to all kinds of noises, not scare them or startle them, but get them used to those things, and that's thunderstorms too as well. So if we don't do that, then we're kind of behind the game a little bit, but it's not that we can't do it. There are things that we can do with thunderstorms. There's recordings that you can play and provide positive reinforcement for them to get up to where a thunderstorm would be, or get used to a thunderstorm, and just do that slowly with CDs that have thunderstorms on them. You don't want to flood them with it, but it takes a lot of time, and I would recommend consulting your veterinarian if you're going to do some sort of behavior modification for thunderstorms.
Okay. The other thing, and this one's pretty near and dear to my heart, thankfully the video is only face up, but I'm actually expecting my second baby in the next few weeks. So this is a personal question for me to you, Brian. And second baby is a little different. I think the anxiety I felt with the first baby was probably greater, just because that was the unknown with how my dogs would react bringing home the baby. But I still have a little bit of fear that, you know, they'll exhibit some behavioral issues when bringing home the baby. And I've had a lot of friends that have gone through this too, and have had pets that have struggled when new babies brought home. So, you know, I think that's a pretty common fear for a lot of families that are going through it. So maybe can you talk a little bit about some strategies when bringing a pet home to meet a new baby?
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's a great question because it happens all the time. The thing that I would say just right from the get-go is just to prepare early. So don't let it get out of hand where you're introducing your dog when you bring your baby home. Obviously, you can't bring the baby home before the baby arrives, but there's things that you can do. So really ahead of time, there's going to be a lot of new equipment. So we have strollers, we have high chairs, we have pack and plays, we have other toys. So if you're going to have all that stuff typically before you bring your baby home, and so getting your dog accustomed to those things, starting to go on walks with a stroller without a baby, which is kind of strange, but getting your dog accustomed to walking next to a stroller. Certainly, you could bring home blankets from the hospital before you come home to kind of have that smell, and really it's really a gradual introduction to that baby once you get the baby home. So I think it's really just preparing ahead of time, getting them used to the different sounds, noises that are going to be occurring. You could even, if you have a friend that has a young child or a baby, maybe take your dog and meet that child, make sure it's controlled, obviously. If it's going to be a big problem again, we're going to go back to visiting your veterinarian and getting some medication if possible, or just techniques on how to introduce your baby to or pet to a baby.
Yeah, and I'm not a veterinarian, but I will add or stress the start early part, because with my first baby, she came early, and we had to move their beds from our bedroom out into the living room because we just were worried how they would react. So so Brian's right when he says think about starting some of this early, because you just never know what's going to happen. Take it from me.
For sure. And the same thing goes, and it reminded me of having a safe place for your dog to go to as well. So it kind of goes back to that safe haven area, and letting your pet have their own area, whether it again be a crate or be a just a bed or a different room to go in, especially when your child grows, where they're going to be running around, pulling on the dog's hair, jumping on the dog, things like that. They're not trying to hurt them. They don't really know, but we want to be careful in those situations. But it also allows your dog to have a safe place to go to get away from everything as well.
Okay. So Sierra on the Facebook Live has a question about moving with a puppy. She's nervous about how the puppy will react to the new space. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a difficult situation when moving, not only with puppies, but probably more so with cats. But certainly puppies can be, have some issues there. So I think the best thing is that it's positive, that when we get to a new place, that everything is positive, and really it's not necessarily distracting, but give them toys to play with, give them treats to eat when you get to the new place. I mean, you want to have a controlled environment. You don't want to have anything there that's going to be cause them to be fearful or have stress. It's difficult to say how to prepare for that. Certainly if you have access to that new place, you could certainly take your dog or your puppy over there and kind of introduce them, and then we go back home. You're not necessarily going to confuse them. It's the same thing with going to the veterinarian. You want to have positive experiences at the veterinarian, so you want them to go there, flood them with treats, give them as much positive reinforcement as possible while they're at the veterinarian. Same thing with a new place. If you have access to a new place, do the same thing. So it is somewhat difficult with that, but I think just making it a positive experience is going to be the best thing for them. Okay.
And then I know we've talked quite a bit with some of these challenging issues about Zylkene and the product itself as a nutraceutical. We did get the question, how long does it take for Zylkene to get into their system and start working? So maybe in kind of reference to some of these situations that we've talked about, you can give some time frames.
Yeah, no, of course, that's a great question. The Zylkene typically takes about 24 to 48 hours to take effect. If we know the situation is occurring on a lot of these things, whether it be fireworks or moving or going to the veterinarian, we want to start it well ahead of time, definitely within the week or even sooner. Prior to that, the sooner we get it on the board, sooner they're going to be better at coping with whatever situation they're put into. So the key there is sooner than later, and not wait till 2 hours before you're going to go to a new home or go somewhere where there's going to be a stressful event or a fearful event.
Okay. The other thing that's big for a lot of families, I know in Texas, the kids just got out of school, so family vacations are starting. So there's a couple of things. And maybe we can talk about traveling with pets first, and if your particular pet doesn't really travel well, and then maybe we can go into if you're planning on boarding your pet. So sort of a two-parter.
Yeah. I'll see if I can follow that.
I'll remember.
Okay, good. So the whole thing with traveling with your pet, certainly, I've certainly traveled with my dog, and he's definitely not been an easy ride as far as if we're driving to my in-laws' house. So certainly there's things that we want to make them again as comfortable as possible. If they have trouble riding in the car, then we want to do positive rides with them. So maybe take a 5-minute car ride where you're giving them a treat, so having a positive experience, or a bone, or giving like a Kong that's filled with something that's good for them. Certainly if it becomes where it gets out of hand with traveling, you want to consult your veterinarian and possibly think about some products to help, not necessarily sedate, but again, product like Zilkene that helps them cope with the situation they're put in. And I have a great example of that. I mean, sometimes it does take more than just Zilkene, but my dog has responded well to Zilkene when traveling, to where he's not trying to jump over the back of the seats to where my kids are sitting, and he'll just lay down and relax. And then when we get to where we're going, he can go run around and he's not sedated. It's just like nothing ever happened. So it definitely, there are dogs and or cats that could need something like that. And again, making that environment comfortable for them. Other things about traveling, make sure we're doing frequent stops. We're allowing them to go to the bathroom, getting enough water, mealtime, things like that. So make sure we're staying in tune with them when we are traveling. Of course, we don't want to lock them in the car when it's hot outside. Keep the windows up. That's a definite no-no. The temperature in there can be at least 20 degrees, if not more, higher than the outside temperature. And dogs and cats can definitely go through heat exhaustion, and it's not a good thing. So we want to pay particular attention to that. As far as boarding, I did remember. The second part of the question is, boarding again, make them as comfortable as possible. Bring their own food, bring blankets, bring bedding for them, bring toys for them to play with if the clinic or boarding facility allows them to those products to be brought there. If we don't bring the food, there's a chance that if we're changing the food, they could get diarrhea or just have stress diarrhea. There's things that we can do for that. There's products out there. Certainly Zilkene is something that can help with allowing them to cope with that situation. If they do have diarrhea, there's other products out there that are anti-diarrheal, like Propectolin is a good product that cures, or that not cures, excuse me, that would help with diarrhea in a short-term situation. But again, consult with your veterinarian. A lot of veterinarians will have these already on their boarding forms. Do you want something that will allow your pet to cope with the situation? And you're not doing a bad thing. It's just trying to, again, make them as comfortable as possible in that situation.
We did get another question on the Facebook page from Francis about fireworks. And I know we already covered fireworks right at the beginning, but maybe you can just do a quick summary of some of the things that you talked about, just so that Francis can get that information.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to do that again.
And she said that nothing seems to calm her pet down. So maybe we can go even further. If you've tried the safe space, you've tried some of the noise canceling, turning the TV up, getting them used to it. Maybe we can kind of think beyond those things and to some more some deeper options.
And I didn't really get into other noises as well. I mean, if they're comfortable with music, certainly we could turn up music very loud in the house, but not to startle them or scare them, to kind of drown out the fireworks noise. So that is something that we didn't get a lot into. But really, initially, as Emily said, having that safe place for that pet to go. A lot of times you're not there. If it becomes severe and nothing is working in that regard, then it's probably best to consult with your veterinarian if you haven't are already consulted with your veterinarian, and think about either natural products like Zilkene or even stronger pharmaceutical type products to help out with your pet. And then also getting on a behavior modification plan. Excuse me. I thought I had my phone on Do Not Disturb, and I'm getting messages. But it's okay. We'll make it through. So, so certainly, consult your veterinarian for those things. Get on a proper behavior modification type plan, and maybe we need some products in there to help for them to cope with that situation. Another thing I did not bring up, there are some products out there that will cover the ears of your dog, specifically like almost ear muffs for your dog. Some dogs take well to them, some don't. And, but it's worth a try to use those products, because if it drowns out the noise, it's avoidance. And that's what we talked about a lot, trying to avoid the noise as much as possible. And if you do have a place in the house to be able to avoid the noise, that's the best thing for them.
Okay. There was a follow-up question about boarding. I think particularly with cats, it seems like cats can sometimes be more of a challenge with boarding than dogs even. And I don't know if some of it is just because a lot of times you hear about the playtime and whatnot available for dogs. So can you maybe talk specifically about cats and some issues that we have with them in particular?
Yes. Again, like dogs, with cats, you certainly want to bring stuff from home that they're comfortable with, whether it be a bed or a blanket or something that makes them feel like they're at home. Certainly bringing their own food. One thing that I didn't touch on with the dogs, but I think it's even more important with cats, is if your cat is okay with playtime, instead of being in a cage the whole time that you're gone in a boarding facility, is if the clinic allows some sort of interaction with the staff, one-on-one interaction, definitely go for that. I think it's valuable for them to have that interaction to where they're not just hanging out in a cage the whole time. Certainly they're getting interaction when they're in there changing the litter and things like that. Other thing is maybe bring your own litter if they like a certain litter that you're using at home as well. So there's a lot of things you can do, and it really comes down to making them comfortable there. Certainly going back to if it is severe and they're really having a rough time, there are medications out there, nutraceuticals out there that can be used to help them cope with that situation. So if it becomes that, then we definitely want to consider that and talk to your veterinarian about that, please.
Okay, and we had a good question come up on the Facebook page about, it's related to moving, but I think it can be related in a couple of ways too. This particular person's golden retriever, who's been with them for 8 years, has never chewed on anything besides toys, but lately they're noticing the dog chewing on shoes and other things, and they recently moved. So a friend suggested maybe the dog is stressed, and I know for me, I actually went through this recently where we moved to a house, and I, of course, didn't follow any of these instructions. It was before I worked here. I didn't know anything about the process, and my dog actually got sick, had diarrhea a couple of times, which had never had any issues with her. So in kind of a related way, there were probably things that I could have done to make her less nervous in hindsight. So maybe you can kind of expand on that a little bit. I know we talked about moving before, but maybe go into that a little bit more.
More on that. Yeah. No, it definitely just that. I mean, if you wouldn't have told me anything else and just said that you just moved, then I would think that's probably part of it. Is there some separation anxiety going on there, which possibly could be being in a new home? As far as if you're not at home, I don't know if your dog is doing this when you're at home or when you're not at home. You don't know what's going on with your dog unless you're recording them or taping them at home to see maybe there's some new noise that your dog hasn't heard at home when you're not there that's kind of triggering that behavior or that kind of destructive behavior that you are seeing. So I don't have all the answers, or I don't have all the answers to the questions I'm throwing out there, but kind of speculating there. So if there is some sort of separation anxiety, I can tell you from my perspective, sometimes we have things for them to do. So if they have toys, and you may already be doing this, toys for them to play with, there's certain dispensers that dispense treats every so often, and to kind of preoccupy them when people aren't at home or when you are at home. I can tell you that just an example with my own dog, again, having a 5-year-old golden retriever, when we brought my son home from the hospital, so my second child, he never chewed up anything ever. We left him out. I crate trained him, graduated to being outside of our bedroom into the whole house. And we would come home after about an hour and he had chewed up one toy, just one toy, random toys that were left out. So I ended up actually graduating him back to, or maybe demoting him, I should say, back to the crate and in our bedroom for a short period of time. So I don't know if your dog's been crate trained or there is a safe place for your dog to go in your new home, but that could be all that it takes. And that's actually all that it took for my golden retriever, was to be crated again and obviously he didn't have access to the toys at that point. But then I graduated him to just being in our bedroom when we're not at home, and to this day he still stays in our bedroom when we're not at home and is perfectly fine there. So maybe it is a separation thing. They want to be in a safe place, and that's his safe place. So other things that may be going on, obviously in a new place, we don't know the different noises that I said that are happening when you're not at home. You may think about recording if you have a way to record your dog when you're not at home, and be able to see actually what's going on or hearing some of the noises. And that's very valuable to a veterinarian to have that information, because we really don't know if that is what's occurring or if it is happening when you're at home. So definitely try to record it. I would consult your veterinarian with that, because sometimes we do need to institute some behavior modification there, and maybe even some mild medication if it becomes too severe.
And that's a good question. So a lot of times people have issue. They'll have a pet that they've had for several years, no issues, and then all of a sudden, as the pet ages, they might start to experience some signs of behavioral issues, chewing or going to the restroom in the house, things like that. So, obviously in some cases you'd have to visit your veterinarian to figure out if there's an underlying issue, but is that pretty common, or what kinds of things can you do with older pets when these signs start to exhibit themselves?
You pointed out something that's important with any of those, and I've said it multiple times, is we need to consult with our veterinarian. There could be some underlying issue that's going on with any of these problems. We want to rule out any medical issues that are occurring, and that's the first and foremost is to do that. Certainly as they age, they can certainly develop some cognitive dysfunction, which is almost like dementia in older dogs or older cats. And it's something that it's difficult to diagnose, but some of the behaviors that they're displaying, probably not necessarily chewing up toys or shoes or anything like that, but more just being confused, not knowing where they are signs of that, or waking up in the middle of the night when they should be sleeping through the night, which most dogs do. Cats are a different story on that, but most dogs will sleep through the night. So you want to, if you do see some of those signs, definitely consult your veterinarian to rule out any medical causes, and then again, bring that history to your veterinarian, and that will help them out to be able to determine what's going on there.
Okay, we're getting ready to come upon the end of the first Vet Talks. Just a couple of things. If you catch this broadcast later on, and you have a question for Dr. McLaughlin, feel free to put it in the comments. And if you hashtag Ask Dr. McLaughlin, we will also be entering in all the questions that we get for a live drawing for some Vetiquinol products, $50 worth. So make sure you ask your question, and if you are joining us late and have a question for him, go ahead and add it, and we'll make sure to get back to you within 24 hours with an answer, with some more information related to your question.
Very good. Thanks, everybody, for your time. It was a great first Vet Talk. I look forward to doing more in the future. Thank you.